This is Adam Watson.
And Robert Diaz.
You're listening to the Darkslinger Mafia podcast. So as of the recording of this, I have not yet posted any of the episodes. Reason for that, I don't think you've heard the story yet, is I did about 4 hours worth of editing the other night.
That was it?
4 hours worth of editing, I got one episode fully edited. That's how long it took me, right? Because I'm not used to doing audio editing. So after 4 hours worth of editing, of us talking and cutting out, weird noises and so on and so forth.
And the random bullshit.
I discover that I had been using a demo version of the program the entire time. And when I went to listen to it, it said, demo, in a computer voice, like every 10 seconds.
Oh, like while you were listening to it?
While I was listening to it. So all idiot. 4 hours of editing were completely wasted.
You spent 4 hours editing something to have to go spend another few hours to edit it again?
Yes. Yep.
Can you pull out the demo?
Can I pull it out and post it somewhere, you mean?
No. Could you pull out it saying demo?
Oh, can you remove the demo part, you mean?
Yeah.
Not after it's saved. So had I realized I was using the demo version and upgraded to the professional version prior to saving, it wouldn't have had demo on there. But since I didn't realize it and saved it in the demo program...
Didn't you see that it said demo on it?
No, I didn't, because I had been editing audio of you talking for 4 hours and I was tired.
You should have seen it before.
I should have, you're right.
What an idiot. Now you're going to go spend another 4 hours trying to do it all over.
At least 4, yeah.
Well, at least you know what you're trying to pull out now.
Yeah, and I've learned how to use the program. So there's bright sides.
Well, you learned because it was a demo.
Yeah.
Yeah, taught you.
But it works the exact same way for the professional version. So.
What an idiot.
Yeah.
Just put it up there anyways. It can be the demo podcast.
Yeah, no.
I used to use demo versions of stuff, and it turned out okay. Back when people would... I mean, I'm sure people still burn CDs. There's got to be 1 or 2 people left in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You just needed a demo version of Nero to burn your CDs, and it worked just fine.
Yeah, that didn't overlay demo in a computer voice every 10 seconds, so...
No. That's funny.
Yes, it was.
It's just like, demo.
Yes. In a female voice, but yes.
Should have changed it to a sexy demo voice, and then
I don't think you can change what the demo voice is.
Well, that's stupid.
I agree. Okay, so in other news. So, one of the things I've been working on this week pretty heavily is getting a Patreon. Is that how you say that?
Patreon is how I've heard it.
Okay. Get a Patreon going for Bovine Muerte, my webcomic, which is, once again, a weekly updated webcomic that comes out every Wednesday.
I read the new page. I liked it. It was funny.
Yeah, what'd you like about it? So, as of right now, as of the recording of this podcast,
August 24th.
I just posted the 4th page to the Lame Mimes Pro Smoking commercial storyline yesterday. So that's the page you're referring to.
I like the first half with the chocolates.
Yeah.
How the lady thinks that she's going to give them to him. Or to her. He's like, no, these are not for you. They're for me. Shoo.
Yeah, the little hand motion that Gabriel drew in. With Lame Mime waving her away. I loved that.
It looks like something that you would actually say to someone.
That I would say?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's probably how you come up with things.
Sometimes. Okay, so the story's working for you so far? You like it a lot?
Yeah, it's funny the way he's taking some of the what you might think are better things that are in cigarettes. Well, showing how you should use it.
Unless you include ammonia and
formaldehyde. No, you cut out the ammonia and formaldehyde, but the apples and the chocolate.
Yeah, the apples and the chocolates were good. When I was originally writing that story, Catherine Myers read it before anyone else did. And I told her ahead of time, there's one ingredient listed that's not actually in cigarettes, right? So every time a good ingredient was brought up, she's like, "Oh, this is the one, right?" So the first thing she said was apple juice. Second thing was chocolates. And I think she didn't realize that coffee were in cigarettes either.
Let's go back a second. That's her last name?
Myers?
Yeah.
It was, until she married Chris.
Oh, yeah, had no idea. It's weird to hear it said Catherine, too.
Yeah, well, that's what she likes to be known as professionally.
Oh.
Although I think that I do slip up and call her Kate all the time when I'm talking on podcasts and things like that.
She'll get over it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she will.
She's easy at getting over things.
Yeah, most of the artists that we worked with knew her name was Kate, or they called her Kat, because that's what her Facebook page has her name as.
Known by so many names.
Yeah, I know, right?
She's just that shrill little short thing yelling at you about something.
Yes. That sounds right.
So which one isn't in there?
It hasn't been revealed yet.
Whoa.
You gotta wait.
You gotta wait till the grand finale.
Maybe. Maybe not.
How long are you planning on making this issue?
This one is 7 pages.
Oh, nearing the end then.
Nearing the end. Nearing the end very shortly. You've actually seen the second to last page. But that's not anything that's been posted yet. I just gave you a personal little sneak peek.
I like that one. It's going to be funny.
Yeah.
When
that one's going to be
the dialogue's on there.
Yes.
So when are you starting your Patreon?
I'm hoping to start it within the next 2 weeks. There are some things that I want to do first, though. One of the things is I actually want to...
So by like mid-September?
Yeah, about then. I want to start rerunning El Bovine Muerte on some webcomic sites. So I started a Tumblr for it about 2 weeks ago, but I haven't really been advertising it that heavily yet. And in the Tumblr, I posted up, I think, the first 3 pages from El Bovine Muerte issue number 1 so far. And I'm looking for some webcomic specific sites, like Smack Jeeves and some stuff like that, to run those on as well. Smack Jeeves is a webcomic site, yes.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's called Smack Jeeves, and it's a webcomic site. I actually don't know what the bigger webcomic sites are these days, because the couple that I read are either hosted on their own website or on Tumblr. Like, I just discovered a fantastic one called the Beelzebubs.
Never heard of it.
It's kind of like a family sitcom done with death metal heads. Like, the whole family are death metal heads.
That sounds kind of funny.
It is.
Makes me think Metalocalypse.
Yeah, I could see that. It's definitely has the same flavor as like Metalocalypse. Or did you watch the movie Deathgasm?
Deathgasm. I've heard of it. I don't think I watched it.
It's a great horror movie. It's about these metalheads who accidentally, well, they don't accidentally, they intentionally do it. They just don't know what it's going to do. But they play the Black Hymn, and it opens up the gates of hell. So you got to check that one out if you haven't yet.
Is it a comedy then?
It's a comedy horror movie.
Oh, okay. Those are the best.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, not the best, but they're funny.
Not the best, but they're great. Yeah.
There's some really good ones out there.
Yeah. So...
Anyways, don't get me started on movies. We'll be here far too long.
Yeah, we will be. So anyway, one of the things I want to do is actually start what I guess I would just call rerunning, because television is the only medium I know that really does that. But basically, I need more places for El Bovine Muerte to be found than just my social media sites and the website that I run and maintain. So I think by putting it on some webcomic sites, I might be able to gain some more readership, which I want. I don't know that it's actually necessary, though, because I think you can build your Patreon as you build your following for something.
Yeah, one can
it
rise
doesn't
with
work
the other.
The same way as Kickstarter in that regard, because, you know, with Patreon, you can keep it going for as long as you want. It's not like there's a funding end date or anything like that. So I might actually put it up sooner than that. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm still working out all the graphic design for the page and trying to finalize the rewards. Thinking about the rewards for this has been 100% different than thinking about the rewards for Kickstarter. Because with Patreon, you know, you want to try and do as many digital goods as possible. From what I gather, just from all the research I've done, it's more like people occasionally offer physical goods, but only after they've hit a certain amount per month. So say you need a goal of reaching this much before you can print issue number 1. maybe once they've hit that much, they'll go ahead and send you a physical copy of issue number 1 when it's printed, if you're pledging it over this level each month. But, with Kickstarter, you decide all your rewards ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And say, okay, this is the exact amount, so you pledge this and you get this, and it works more like a store in that fashion, right? It's more like a pre-order in that way. But with Patreon, it's completely different, where you have to think of your rewards as something you're going to give every single month, and figure out a real value to place on them.
Oh, I didn't know that it worked like that. I haven't looked into it much.
Yeah. So, like with webcomics, one of the things that I see a lot is at a lower tier, people offer their patrons the ability to see the page earlier than everyone else does. So that's going to be one of them that I offer. Another one that seems to be pretty popular from what I can tell. It is more difficult to tell than Kickstarter, because with Kickstarter you can look at a campaign that's completed, see exactly how many people backed at this level, right? But with Patreon, you might see that there are 40 people currently at this dollar tier, but that doesn't mean that they haven't had 40 more throughout the lifetime of their campaign, depending on how long it's ran or, whatever, right? So it's a lot more difficult to tell what kind of rewards are going to work in that way. The research element of it is a little bit more difficult, but it seems like having a behind the scenes journal seems to work pretty well on there. So that's something that I want to offer, so that people can see like the pages when they're still in the black and white phase, and what they look like prior to the lettering being put on, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, behind the scenes. That's a good idea.
And
you get to see what a comic looks like before it's
a
comic.
I want to figure out some more tiers, but the other tier that I can offer currently that I can keep with the digital aspect and still offer what I would consider to be a lot of value is to have at one of the slightly higher tiers, well, higher for now, which would be, like $10 a month or whatever, to have complete access to all the Darkslinger digital comics. So the whole archive. It's Chronicles, Von Helsing number 1 through 5.
Everything that you have.
Everything that I have. That they'd be able to read those and have unlimited access, basically, for that amount. Plus, they would receive the other tiers, like the behind-the-scenes journal and the 1 day or 2 day early with the page.
What if you tied it into this, what we're doing right now, and you give them all the unedited crap that we've amassed, and then people get to listen to the...
It's funny you mention that, because eventually I'm probably going to want to launch a Patreon for the podcast.
And then everyone can listen to the one that says demo every 10 seconds.
Yeah, maybe I'll put that as an incentive. Because, as I've talked to you about previously, I'm not just doing one podcast right now. I'm doing like 4. So, as I'm doing that many, there are costs associated with doing this. We're doing this really, really cheaply at the moment. I do want to actually get some proper equipment for this, get better editing software, so on and so forth. It would be nice to actually have a budget to do these things with. So eventually, I do want to do a Patreon for the podcast as well.
So I guess you better save that then.
Yeah, I guess I better. But I'd like to, master it a little bit more with Bovine Muerte before I look at that as an option.
Yeah, Patreon's not something I know how it works. I looked at one Patreon page before for SciShow on YouTube, and that was it.
I'm definitely not a master of it by any means. This will be my first one, and I'm just kind of winging it and hope that I'm doing it right. I've watched a number of YouTube videos and read a lot of articles about it, but I guess we'll just have to see. But the other thing is, I don't want to launch it too close to the Ghost Assassin Kickstarter.
Yeah. You don't want one taking away from the other, maybe.
I don't know that they necessarily will, but yeah, I don't want to... The Patreon is something that I can be marketing for basically the life of the webcomic, right?
Yeah.
So there's not a big rush, but, the more people you can get supporting you from the get-go, the more that are likely to come on board. But with Kickstarter, you got to really get out there and do the marketing push right away, right? And if I'm doing marketing for that and a Patreon, that's more time than what I have.
So if you don't want to launch them at the same time, and you were hoping to have a Patreon thing up soon, does that mean your Kickstarter is coming even sooner?
No, the Kickstarter is probably going to have to be pushed out a little bit because I'm still waiting on some of the items to be prototyped. And as I may have mentioned before, with this one, I want to make sure everything is 100% correct. And the only way I can really do that is by waiting to have all of the items prototyped first. You know, I want the exact weights so I know exactly what shipping is going to cost me. I want to know exactly how the various Ghost Assassin images that I picked to be metal prints look printed on metal. You know, because maybe what looks good printed on paper really doesn't look good printed on metal.
Yeah.
So
get all your T's and I's crossed.
So I want to make sure that I'm offering good, solid products to everybody. I want to make sure that I have my marketing campaign in place. So if that means pushing out the launch date of the Kickstarter a little bit more, so be it.
Better to have it all done and ready for the people.
Exactly.
Give them something good.
I'd rather delay it and have it be correct than rush it and have it be shit.
Really, it's just delaying on your schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
Not like it was...
It's not like you're glued to your computer waiting for me to launch the Ghost Assassin Kickstarter. I wish you were, but I know you're not.
Maybe one or two people are.
Maybe. It's hard to say. You know, Ghost Assassin definitely has a fan base.
They're your number one fan.
Mm-hmm.
They wanna stalk you.
You know, I had a stalker early in my career.
I had a stalker once in my life. She was a crazy bitch.
You want to tell that story on the podcast?
I don't care. It was towards the end of high school. It was towards the end of my junior year in high school. And there was a new girl. And I was trying to move in on the new girl.
Mm-hmm.
But she was she was too nice of a person. She was that kind of person. And so she befriended this other girl who saw my advances toward the new girl as toward her. And, you know, I was too nice then.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to the other girl, and I got her number, and the other girl was like, oh, yeah, can I have your number too? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, no. You want to text or something like that? Okay, I guess we can do that. And then it just, it spiraled out from there in a bad fashion. She wanted to talk to me too much, and then she wanted me to go to this... I was trying to get the new girl to go to a dance with me, but she couldn't, so the other crazy one was trying to get me to go with her, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going. And then she called me, a couple days later, and for some reason had it in her head that we were going together to that dance. And she was like, my parents are going to be really upset if you don't take me to this dance. You know, they were all looking forward to it. And I'm like, bitch, I barely know you. You're just terrifying me. And then it continued into the summer. This was back, I guess, MySpace was still kind of a thing then.
Okay.
My junior year.
10 years ago or so.
Oh, God, it was just over 10 years ago. No, it was 9 years ago.
9 years ago.
8 or 9. And she would, say stuff to me on MySpace or, comment or something.
Uh-huh.
And, oh, God, it was so awful. I had to stop talking to her. Thankfully, it was, a month out of the end of the year. It was real close to the end. And she was a year older. She was graduating and gone. I did not have to go back to that.
That's good.
Oh, she was so goddamn scary, that crazy bitch. I remember when the call happened about the whole, my parents are going to be upset about not taking me to the dance, and something about her crazy uncle. I don't know. I can't remember anymore. It was terrifying. I hung up the phone, and I was just stood there, kind of freaked out a little bit. And I called up my friend Emily, and I was like, she's like, hello. And the first thing I said is, some crazy bitch is stalking me. What do I do?
Well, mine was back in 2009, and I was
nearly around the same time.
Around the same time, I was in the parking lot at Fred Meyer's in Gladstone. I'd ran into my cousin in the parking lot, was standing there talking to him, right? And this woman say probably 62, 63, comes walking up to me. I figured she was going to ask me directions, something like that, right? Instead, she asked, "Are you Adam Watson?" Yes, I am. How can I help you? When's Ghost Assassin issue #1 coming out?
Scary.
I was like, "Oh, you're a fan of mine."
I guess that's not that scary, actually, so far.
No, not so far. And she's like, "Yeah, I am. When's Ghost Assassin issue #1 coming out?" I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, and I kind of explained to her why it was delayed. Yada yada." And during that time, I was actually going to release Ghost Assassin as a series of one-shots and mini-series. It's only been in recent years that I decided to do it as actual issue numbers, 1, 2, 3 ongoing. And so I was kind of explaining that to her, and it looked like Mercy wasn't too far off from release during that time. It's important to note that, that was right before my life went to complete hell. She started quoting all these things that I had said in interviews back at me that contradicted the release, right? And
that's getting creepy.
Yeah, she knew the exact websites, the dates they were posted, all this stuff, right? Like, a few of them were interviews I didn't even remember doing. And so I'm like, just kind of trying to appease her. She's a fan of mine. I appreciate that. I don't want to be a dick. So I asked her if, I don't very often offer autographs. If somebody asks for one, I always give them, right? But you've been to enough shows with me. You know that I never try to use that as, a selling point, a pushing point, anything like that. I find it weird when my other indie comic creator friends do that.
Someone might not want their shit signed.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's not like we're big-time comic stars or anything, where that's even, necessary, you know what I mean? But, in any case, I asked her if she wanted one of those, She had me sign just a piece of paper she had in her car. It's like, okay, well, that was that, right? And, some time goes by. I never see her online. It's like that. I mean, I have the Darkslinger comics at that time period, probably MySpace, Facebook. Never see anything pop up on any of the comments, anything like that, for that or my personal page. No friend requests, no anything like that. So I just chalk it up to, she's got a good memory and she really wants to read this comic, right?
She's just a fan.
Just a fan. And then I'm in Seattle for Emerald City Comic Con. And she shows up and she walks up to my table and she's like, "Where's Ghost Assassin at?" And so, I actually did have Convention Editions Mercy out at this time. It's 2010, right? Sold her a copy and, here, this is newly printed, yada, yada, yada. Tells me that she paid ticket price just to come in for this one comic and drove from Portland to Seattle, right?
Damn.
Right? I'm like, damn, if I hadn't had this printed, that might have been kind of scary, right?
She may have jumped across that table at you.
Right? But, it seemed okay enough. And everything was all right.
Some people they just love what they love.
Right.
They'll drive to get something.
And I was like, cool, I got a real fan here, right? But then over the course of the next 6 months, she started showing up to every single event. Every one of them. And there were instances of her getting quasi-threatening towards my other fans at the table. So eventually I just politely asked her, so I guess this part makes her not a real stalker in the traditional sense, because I asked her to please stop coming up to my table, because even though I appreciated her being a fan, she was driving away business. And at that point, she did leave me alone.
Oh, so, there is a fine line that they have to walk.
Yeah, and it's possible she may not have realized how creepy she was coming across.
At least she was nice enough.
Yeah.
To back off.
But the moment she started getting possessive and wanted to be my only fan, that was a line in the sand that I was, not going to back down from.
Might have ended up miseried on that one.
That'd be horrible, because, in the book, she actually chops his feet off. It's not just breaks him with a hammer like in the movie.
Well, I haven't read the book or
she takes
seen the movie.
Axe to him in the book. Chops his feet off so he can't go anywhere.
That's terrifying.
It is. And I'm not sure how much good quality content we're
Maybe
getting for the podcast.
maybe there's a chance that she's still following all your stuff right now.
Hey, if she is, I'll take her money.
You could say hi to her right now.
Hi, stalker lady.
Oh, she appreciates it. Or she's going to murder you now. One of the two.
One of the two. God, she's got to be like 70-something now if she's still alive.
Hey, you can be old and like comics.
No, I meant the whole aspect of her like jumping me in the shadows and killing me. It's seeming less and less likely with every year.
No, it'll be more like, here's some cookies and they're poison. Or like, do you want one of these old caramels at the bottom of my purse?
The answer to both those would be no. What would worry me is that if Alan Bennett were with me, he might eat it. So I'd have to slap his hand and tell him to not eat it.
Yeah, being an old guy, he might. But being an old guy, he might already have some old candies in his pocket.
He probably does.
Man, we really moved right along there.
Yeah, we did.
What are you reading? Well, we'll move back to comics. What was the last comic you read?
I read all of Alterna Comics issue number 2 releases. So,
I don't know that.
Okay, Alterna Comics came into the scene around the same time as Darkslinger did. It's a company owned by Peter Simeti. Recently, they decided to bring back newsprint comics, right? You know what newsprint is?
No.
You know the paper comics used to be printed on?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's newsprint. So it's exactly what it sounds like when you think about it. So anyway, they decided they were going to do this, and there have been people who have printed comics on newsprint. It's not like it's unheard of. Ty printed Captain Cure #1 on newsprint. There's a lot of people who have printed on newsprint that are in the indie scene. The difference is they actually want to print on newsprint and bring it back via comic shops and newsstand distributors.
Sounds tough.
I'm sure it is, but since they were the first to kind of re-enter this market and they were able to do it at a really cheap price point, they actually made a pretty big splash. Got a lot of people excited. A lot of comic shops seem behind them, and there's a few comic shops who seem to take this as some sort of weird-ass threat. But anyway, their issues are $1.50 a piece.
Okay.
So, like, most of them seem to be limited series. I'm not sure if any of them are ongoing series. A 4-issue limited series, if you bought each one at cover, would cost you $6. Marvel Comics produces one comic that can cost that much.
Yeah. So they didn't like that the price was lower?
So I try to keep up as much as possible on Peter's Facebook feeds so I could follow what the retailers thought about what they were doing. Some of them did seem to complain that the price point was lower, and there are some comic shop owners who just don't seem to get that the more readers comics have in general, the more business they will ultimately have.
They just sound like idiot fans as opposed to businessmen.
Oh, there are definitely people who own comic shops that are more fans than businessmen.
It's all well and good to be a fan of what you do. And
it is.
That's
absolutely.
That's great.
But with no business acumen, you can't really help yourself or the industry.
You're just going to fail and lose all your money.
Yeah. So, the one thing is something that has a $1.50 price point. On the surface, you can look at that and say it's not going to bring in as much money, right? Because they have a limited amount of space at every comic shop.
Yeah.
And, every single inch that you're using somewhere, that inch is costing you, because you could put something else there, right? But realistically, how many Marvel books, how many DC books, so on and so forth, do most comic shops put in there that they sell very few copies of?
Yeah, there's a million different things that they have of Marvel and DC.
And so, one of my thinkings is, okay, if they buy a book that has a retail cover price on there of $4 and they sell it at $4, but after what their discount was, they spent $2 a piece. At $4 a book, they're paying for 2 of those every time they sell one. Of course, that's how the math's going to work out, right? But that's also a much bigger loss if you don't end up selling all the copies.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, say they have 10 copies and it's got a $4 cover price, and they only sell 2 of them. There's $8 worth they brought back, right? Whatever. Or even if they sell all 10 of them. Say they sell all 10. $40 potentially, right? $20 in profit. But if you take a book that's $1.50, they're going to be paying the same price, right? So they're most likely paying 75 cents a piece, I would think. You would think if they were actually pushing the idea of it and they read any of them themselves and they liked it, because one of the best things you can have happen for you is that the person who owns a comic shop has read your book and liked it. Because when comic shop owners like your stuff, they'll get behind your stuff. There are a number of shops, though, who maybe they don't have the time to read, or maybe they don't have the desire to read anything that's not Marvel and DC. There's a lot of shops that don't check out anything that's not one of the big 2 publishers. And it might be a time thing. It might be, like running a comic shop takes a shit ton of time. But whatever the case, I think that if they took the time to read these, they could get behind them. And, it just stands to reason if you could sell 3 times as many of these at $1.50 a piece, you're actually going to be making more profit than you will off that space that you reserved for, Marvel's newest reboot of Iron Man that you're going to sell 5 copies of,
And if it's
and be
limited,
stuck with 35 copies because you had to get that many to get a variant cover, yada yada.
If it's this sort of limited thing too, and it's has the gimmick of being printed differently and it's making a splash, it's just smart business to have what's popular right there at the moment.
Right. Well, part of it is that, this is the way comics used to be printed, right? And they're limited series. You know what that means, right?
It means it only runs so long.
Yes, okay. I'm just making sure.
Yeah. Words are self-explanatory, I think.
Most of the time. So, in any case, this is the way that the comic industry, used to be at one point in time. And it was vibrant not just with the bigger publishers, but, with the smaller guys, too. So, when I was a kid, and you'd go to, we had a Century grocery store in Malala. Are you old enough
I
to
remember that?
Okay. Century actually had a pretty big spot for comics, right? And when I was 12, 13, and you went there, it wasn't just X-Men and Batman, Spider-Man, so on and so forth that took up the rack. They had the Ultraverse heroes. They had Now Comics, which, some Now was pretty good and some of it was. They did Terminator, but they also did Married with Children in comic form.
That sounds
I
awful.
absolutely love Married with Children, but who the fuck asked for a Married with Children comic?
No one.
No one, right? But they were, I think, the first company to do Green Hornet in comic form. I could be wrong about them being the first, but they were definitely, right in there. But anyway, you had them, Topps trading cards.
Yeah.
For a while, they had their own comic line, and they had Jurassic Park and Mars Attacks, some stuff like that in it. And you could find those at Century. It wasn't just the big 2 publishers. There are these places. Now, a lot of those publishers went out of business or were bought by other publishers. Ultraverse was owned by Malibu. Malibu got bought by Marvel. So those comics being pulled out of the newsstand market were for various reasons. But it kind of seems like what Marvel or DC do, most of the other publishers are too quick to follow. All the little publishers are always trying to be those 2 guys. I absolutely applaud what Alterna is doing because, they're doing their own thing. And they're actually returning to a market that the comic industry should have never left to begin with. I picked up and read all of the second issues from Alterna that were released in August.
I know nothing about it still. Besides that, it's printed differently.
Okay.
And there's a whole big thing about it. What kind of comic is it?
Mother Russia was one of them. That is about zombies. I haven't read the first issues on most of these, so I'm kind of just going off of what's in second issues because I couldn't find the first issues in most of the comic shops that I went to. Well, in all the comic shops I went to, obviously. Otherwise, I would have picked those up. Issue number 2 of Mother Russia. What it's about is it's a zombie apocalypse style book, but it's set during World War II in a town of Russia that the Germans have infiltrated. So there's one living Russian and one living German soldier, and he's a Nazi, that are now kind of having to work together. So it's like this whole extreme enemies that actually would have been historical. They were allies and they were enemies during a zombie invasion. That one was really good. The artwork on it is what I would consider to be upper class indie fare. Like, you could still definitely tell it was an independent comic. But as an independent comic, the artwork was really good. Just kind of like the upper levels what you see in indie. In terms of the writing, though, the writing was extremely solid. The dialogue was very good, well nuanced. Each character, you could really get the sense of who they were as a character. So, writing in it was very good. The second one was Scrimshaw. I liked the artwork. The storyline, honest to God, I couldn't have told you what that one was about. Out of all of them, it's probably the only one I'm not going to continue reading. Just because I couldn't make heads or tails of what was going on in this issue. The third one was The Chair, which I believe was actually something that Alterna released in graphic novel format before this, and that's one that they've also made into a movie. The Chair is about a guy who appears to be insane in some fashion, and he's on death row. The warden is torturing people in death row. So you know that they eventually get killed, but until their execution date, they're being tortured. And so that issue kind of deals with him being tortured, but it goes into his mindscape enough to make you question if maybe what he's seeing is legitimately what's happening.
Sounds interesting.
It is. The Chair was really good, and it's done in a very interesting art style. It almost kind of reminded me of chalk renderings. I'm not sure what medium it was drawn in, but it was incredibly interesting. The third one is called Trespasser. It's alien invasion book about a dad and his daughter live out in the woods. I need the first issue of that one to understand exactly what the hell the aliens are doing there and all that. And if they're like the last two people in this area or if they just happen to live in an isolated area. That one seemed interesting. I don't really know what to say about it beyond and besides just that it seemed interesting. I would continue to pick it up. I'd pick up the first and third. Interesting enough to continue. I was a little bit confused, but I chalked that up more to the fact that it's the second issue and I hadn't read the first one. But it was well done. The artwork was very, very good in it. The writing was very good. So the other one was a number 1 issue, Wicked Righteous. These kids who most of the adults have died off in their world. Some disease, something hit them. And these kids are basically all that are left. And so it's a post-apocalyptic world, but where a bunch of kids are trying to survive.
Isn't there a movie like that?
Probably. There are probably actually a couple movies like that. But the kids that are the main characters in the story were raised by what appear to be deeply religious parents who, if I'm understanding what's going on correctly, their parents thought that they were dying due to the rapture. And that could, in itself, provide a wholly different spin on it if they want to with subsequent issues.
That one sounds pretty interesting.
It is. The only problems with that one I had at all is it had really poor punctuation.
Oh, that's so annoying.
It is. It did annoy me, but not enough to where I was thrown out of the story. So I would definitely recommend picking up any of those. And Scrimshaw, if you want to enjoy something just for the artwork, I'd still recommend that one. My problem with it really and truly was that there didn't seem to be any explanation for what the hell was going on in it. And it kind of reminded me, artwork-wise, of, have you seen Tokyo Ghost?
Yeah.
Okay, the artwork in it kind of reminded me of that. But I had the same problem with Tokyo Ghost, where it had really cool artwork, really almost kind of unique artwork by today's standards anyway. Although, the artwork was pretty prevalent in like the mid-90s. Tokyo Ghost fell flat with the writing to me as well. And
I hate that.
This one was the same thing. Like, I couldn't get into the storyline.
That's the worst.
But with the exception of Scrimshaw, I could definitely recommend and highly recommend picking up all the issues, especially when you take into consideration the fact that they cost $1.50.
$1.50 is real good.
I would recommend them, honestly, if they were full-price comics. But the fact that they're $1.50 just makes it all that much more,
Yeah, I'm too cheap to pick up a full price comic for the most part, but
Yeah, I can see that.
$1.50.
$1.50, yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah. And I know they have a couple of kids lines books as well, but I haven't been able to find any of those yet.
It's a pretty good list of stuff.
Yeah.
To have recently read.
That's what I read in last week.
Hmm.
I'm also reading a book on marketing, but it's
not quite as exciting.
Not at all like what you'd expect. It actually depends on what
you define as exciting.
Yeah, because see, I started reading this thinking it was just going to be just a standard marketing book, right? And so far, I'm at like the 13th chapter, and everything that has been about has been studies of how the human brain works.
Well, you do need to know
scientific explanation to mysticism. Like basically everyone who's written a valid report on ways that the brain interprets information. The author of this book took a look at their findings and then broke them down and compared them with other findings. So, like Stephen Hawking is quoted in there. The Dalai Lama is quoted in there. Like,
that's quite a range.
It is. It's very interesting. And when I started reading it, I didn't expect anything like that because it's more like a spiritual scientific book than anything to do with marketing. So it's like it's tricking you into thinking it's something that it's not, which is the best sort of marketing there is.
Whoa.
Right?
They marketed the hell out of that.
They did. So what have you been reading lately?
The last thing I read, I think, was I want to say it was Lucifer.
Okay.
It was I finally got through. I mean, it was only like 6 issues that I had.
Uh-huh.
I finally worked my way through the last of that what I had. I need to find the others from I think it started last year. This series of Lucifer, the newer one. It's good. Is
Mike Carey the writer of it?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I can't remember. There was one artist. I don't remember any of their names. I'm not that good at that.
It's fair.
But I remember there was one artist that dropped off 4 or 5 in, and I was a little disappointed because you could see a little bit of a difference. But the first 4 seemed to be one storyline, and I liked it. It was good. They were trying to. God was dead, and the angels think that it was Lucifer, because who else would do it but Lucifer?
Well, and since Lucifer, are they going with the same Lucifer that's from the Sandman universe?
Yeah, he's in Lux.
Okay.
And
so in Sandman, it's actually stated that Lucifer is the most powerful of all beings. That he doesn't realize it, but he's more powerful than God.
Yeah, this one
because he's been given the biggest, most powerful domain out of all of the other realms.
He's injured in this one.
Oh, okay.
He's trying to figure out, and they bring in the angels send Gabriel after him. I think it was Gabriel. Because he's a fallen angel at that point. He's down on Earth. Hadn't fell quite as far as Lucifer, but he lost his wings and all that.
Oh, okay. See, that's interesting. In the principalities, I make a clear definition to let the angels keep their wings after they fall. Our distinction. They actually lose their wings when they fall, huh?
Yeah, one of the angels. I can see. I don't know. I'm slipping my memory if he's Gabriel, if he's Michael. But
he's one of the big important.
He's
angels.
One of the important ones, and his wings. They got the cool angel-looking wings, but his are like peacock-colored.
Oh, interesting.
And there's this evil thing in a jar following these people around in a side story that all comes together in the end, and it's making people murderous.
Interesting.
The cover art was my favorite, but the first 4 issues are solid in the art. But the first cover is the best. Just like Lucifer descending. And the color, all that. Fantastic.
Well, I'm going to have to check those out. That's our show for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will have a new episode posted next Monday. If you'd like to contact us, you can find us on the web at www.darkslinger.com, on Facebook under Darkslinger Comics, Chronicles von Helsing, Ghost Assassin, Bovine Muerte, on Twitter under Darkslinger Comics, on Instagram under Darkslinger Comics. We have a Tumblr for both Darkslinger Comics and Bovine Muerte. And you can also find us on Pinterest. Thank you for listening.
Demo.